It was a few years ago. I was 33 and decided to take a road trip with my childhood friend. We wanted a break, just some small towns and fall colors for inspiration. But what happened along the way still confounds me. The first night we stayed in a worn-down motel. The building was old, with flickering lights and creaky floors. I felt uneasy, but I brushed it off. After we dropped our bags, I noticed an old wooden box on the bedside table. I opened it. Inside were strange photographs of previous visitors. They were posed oddly, twisted smiles, vacant eyes. I felt a chill creep up my spine, but I chalked it up to my imagination. Later that night I heard laughter outside. It seemed close, then faded. I looked at my friend, already half asleep. I tried to ignore it. Maybe kids playing? I wanted to relax, but something felt off. The next day, we drove to another town, famous for its harvest festival. The residents welcomed us with smiles, but their eyes. I can't explain it. They felt hollow, like they were rehearsing lines. I mentioned it to my friend, but she shrugged it off. Maybe I was paranoid. That night, at a different motel, I couldn't stop staring at the walls. They felt like they were watching us. I asked my friend about the photos in the box. She said they were just weird, probably a prank by the owners. I didn't answer. I could still hear that laughter outside hanging over us. As we moved on to the next town, I started taking pictures. I thought it might help. I kept catching glimpses of shadows. Once I swore I saw a child standing in a field, just staring. I looked again, and he was gone. My heart raced. I think I asked my friend if she saw him too, but she was busy talking to a local. He kept saying strange things about the harvest festival. By the end of our trip, everything felt wrong. Each encounter felt like part of a twisted pattern, but I couldn't figure it out. The locals whispered, and that eerie laughter followed us everywhere. On our final night, I looked in the box again. There was a photograph of us inside. We weren't in odd poses, we just stood there, blank faces. I froze. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a text from my friend. "Why didn't you tell me they were already waiting for us?" My heart dropped. Nobody else was in the room. I looked back at the photo. Our smiles had turned to frowns. I felt dizzy. What kind of game were they playing? I dropped the photo, my hands shaking. It clattered against the wooden floor. My heart raced, pounding like a drum. I felt trapped in a bad dream, surrounded by shadows that watched but didn't help. I wanted to call my friend, but my phone felt heavier than usual. I picked it up, staring at that chilling message. They were already waiting for us. What did she mean by that? I felt the walls close in. I had to see her. Maybe she knew something I didn't. I dashed out of the room. Down the dim hallway I navigated the flickering lights and echoing laughter. The sounds seemed to bounce off the walls, growing louder. Panic surged in me. I pushed open the door to her room, but it was dark inside. "Sarah?" I called out, fear creeping into my voice. No answer. I flipped the light switch, but nothing happened. The air felt thick, suffocating. I stepped back, trying to hold on to my sanity. Then I turned and saw the blurry figure at the end of the hallway, a child standing there just like before. Only this time the child was closer, staring at me with an empty gaze. I blinked, and he was gone. My heart raced. I turned back to my friend's room, trying the door again. It swung open this time, revealing only darkness. I stepped in, my feet brushing against the carpet. The air felt colder, like a silence that demanded I pay attention. I reached for my phone again, and the screen lit up with notifications. A new text from Sarah. "Get out. Don't look at them." My stomach dropped. I felt dizzy all over again. In that moment, I knew I couldn't stay. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. I dashed out, gripping my phone tightly. Emergency exit? I needed to find it. Panic washed over me. I started running through the parking lot, glancing around as if the locals were watching. Their faces blurred together in my mind, but those hollow eyes remained clear and chilling. I stumbled toward the road, desperate for escape. That's when I saw a figure standing beneath a flickering streetlight. It was a woman. Long hair, tattered clothes. She seemed familiar, yet I couldn't place her. I walked closer. She looked at me with those same vacant eyes. "They're waiting," she whispered. I felt a rush of cold air hit me. My heart thudded harder. Waiting for what? I barely managed to ask, but she merely pointed back toward the motel. The laughter echoed, mixing with whispers. Confused and terrified, I turned and ran. I didn't look back, trying to drown out their calls, their laughter. Just as I reached the road, my phone buzzed again. One last text from Sarah. "I'm sorry." As I stood frozen, at that moment I knew this was just the beginning. Someone else was waiting for me. I sprinted away from the motel, my lungs burning with each desperate breath. The chilling shadows seemed to stretch and grab at me from the depths of the night. I could still hear the laughter, a jarring sound that echoed in my head. My phone amplified the chaos around me. I glanced down, half expecting another message from Sarah, but the screen glowed with a news alert instead. Mysterious disappearances in local area. My heart skipped. I tapped open the link. The article detailed a string of strange events linked to this very place. People had vanished over the last few months without a trace. The only common thread? A motel. The same one I was running from. I didn't need to read further. My instincts screamed to get as far away as possible. Suddenly I bumped into something hard, a wooden sign. I looked up, breathless. It was a fork in the road, directing me either to the town or into the woods. I hesitated, the choice burning in my mind like a malfunctioning light bulb. Both paths felt wrong, but I had to choose quickly. Voices drifted through the trees, low whispers that danced in the wind. They sounded too familiar, like the laughter I had just fled from. I took a step toward the road, but something pricked at my thoughts. Sarah had warned me. "Get out." Did I trust that voice over my own fear? That's when I saw it. A flickering light behind the tree line. It pulsed gently, beckoning me. Just as I felt compelled to investigate, a shadow flitted by. I froze. What was it? The shapes in the woods darted between trees, playing tricks on my vision. I backed away slowly, panic rising again. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I nearly jumped out of my skin. I fumbled for it, expecting Sarah, but it was a call, an unknown number. My heart pounded as I hesitated, unsure of what to do. I answered, barely able to swallow. "Help!" a voice crackled on the line. "They're coming!" The call cut off, leaving a haunting silence. Who was that? Before I could process, a rustle echoed from the woods. It felt like an invitation, or maybe a warning. I turned back to the trees, and from the darkness, the child emerged again. His face twisted, an unnatural grin splitting his features. No, this wasn't the same innocent boy I had imagined before. This boy looked wrong. "Come play," he said, voice soft yet sinister. I felt bile rise in my throat. I had to escape before I could become part of whatever game he wanted to play. I sprinted down the road toward the town, breaths quickening, heart racing. The darkness closed in, but I pressed on, desperate to find help. As the road curved, I spotted the glow of lights in the distance. Safety, perhaps? I stumbled forward, hope surging only to be quenched by another buzz from my phone. Another message from Sarah. "Don't trust anyone." The streetlights flickered above me and I felt the shadows shift again. Someone was definitely waiting. As I reached the edge of town, I looked back one last time. The boy was gone, but the laughter echoed in my ears once more. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake in a dimly lit diner. The smell of stale coffee and burnt toast filled my nostrils, heavy and familiar. For a moment I thought I was still dreaming, trapped in that terrible night. My heart raced, remembering the boy, the laughter, and that ominous call. It felt like a cruel joke that I had decided to run into this place. As I looked around, I saw a few other patrons, their faces hidden in the shadowy corners. Their eyes were blank, fixated on their plates. No one looked at me. I felt exposed, like a moth drawn to a flame, but I forced myself to sit at the counter. "Coffee?" A voice interrupted my thoughts. A server approached, wiping his hands on a ragged apron. He looked tired, like he'd witnessed far too much in his life. I nodded, still shaken, wondering if he could sense my unease. He poured the coffee and I took a sip. It was remarkably bitter. I scanned the diner for any signs of normalcy. The jukebox played a soft, eerie tune, almost too calm for my racing thoughts. That's when I noticed a newspaper on the counter, edge crumpled and yellowed. The headline read, "Locals fear for missing friends." My blood ran cold as my eyes swept over the faces of the missing. Just then, my phone buzzed again. Sarah's name flashed across the screen, and I snatched it quickly. "Are you okay?" I could hear the concern in her voice. "I've been trying to reach you." "I'm in a diner," I replied, glancing around cautiously. "But it's strange here. I don't know what to trust. The people." My voice trailed off as I caught the server staring at me, his eyes piercing. Did he hear my words? "Get out of there," Sarah urged. "Now!" My throat tightened. There was something in her tone that gripped me. I hung up without saying goodbye. Slowly, I placed my phone back on the counter, feeling the heavy gaze of the server. I needed to leave. Just as I rose from my seat, the diner door swung open. A gust of cold wind swept inside, and my heart stopped. The boy. He stood on the threshold, eyes glinting in the sparse light. He looked even more distorted than before. The laughter bubbled up from deep within my chest, spilling out like a grotesque song. Without thinking, I bolted toward the exit, dodging the patrons who seemed frozen in place. The boy stepped inside, his grin wide, and his voice echoed. "Come play with us." I burst into the night, the chill wrapping around me like a vice. Panic surged again as I ran down the street. The shadows peeled back, revealing the townsfolk now staring at me, their faces blank but their smiles uncomfortably wide. Fear gripped my stomach. I had to find safety, and soon. My shoes slapped against the pavement as I turned the corner, but then I skidded to a halt. The road ahead was blocked, an unending stretch of darkness that seemed to absorb the light. And worse, the boy now stood beside me, giggling softly. I turned back, my breath turning shallow. That wasn't just a game anymore, it was a trap. Then out of the dark I heard something. A soft, whispering chant that sent chills through my very core. I moved closer to the shadows, following the sound, desperate to uncover what lay behind this terrifying display. But whatever was waiting could not be unseen. I suddenly realized I had unwittingly stepped into another layer of whatever nightmare this town had to offer. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, trying to catch my breath. The boy laughed again, his sound hollow, echoing in the emptiness around me. I couldn't stay here, not with him so close. Adrenaline surged through me, propelling me back into the winding streets. I needed to find a place to hide, to regroup. As I ran, the chanting grew louder, each syllable wrapping around me like a vine. It pulled me in, twisting my thoughts. I turned left, desperate to break away. The sound seemed to follow, dancing in my ears. Who were they? What had they done to the townsfolk? I spotted a flickering light ahead, a shabby gas station, its neon sign buzzing erratically. I sprinted toward it, hoping this would be my refuge. The front door creaked as I pushed it open, and I rushed inside, pausing to catch my breath. The inside was dim, illuminated only by a few weak bulbs hanging overhead. An old cashier sat behind the counter, his eyes half closed. "You lost, girl?" he mumbled. Fear twisted in my gut. What was he doing here? "No, I started, but before I could explain, his eyes suddenly widened. He leaned forward, focusing on something behind me. "What's that?" he hissed, his voice low and urgent. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach as the boy appeared in the entrance, his grin stretching impossibly wide. "She's just come to play." He stepped inside, his laughter echoing through the small space. I bolted toward the back of the gas station, heart racing, as the cashier called after me. "You shouldn't—" I didn't listen. I flung open a door marked Employees Only and plunged into a narrow hallway. The darkness felt suffocating, but I could hear the chanting even more clearly now, each voice intertwined, growing stronger. I stumbled down the hall until I reached another door. This one led to a small storage room. The air was heavy with the smell of oil and grease. I ducked inside, closing the door quietly behind me. I pressed my back against it, heart pounding in my ears, and listened. The boy's giggle seeped through the door and I clenched my fists. What did he want? Perhaps he was just a figment of my imagination, a twisted remnant of that dreadful night. But deep down, I knew he was something much darker. I crouched down, peeking through a crack in the door. I could see the boy waiting in the hallway, his silhouette barely illuminated by the dim light. He looked expectant, as if he could sense that I was close, like I was a puppet on a string. Just then, my phone buzzed again in my pocket, breaking the tension. It was Sarah again. I hesitated. Did I have the courage to answer? What if the boy heard? I held my breath, hoping she wouldn't give up on me. But then, a different sound broke through the chanting, sharp and sudden. The faintest whisper knotted my stomach and I twisted the door handle, determined to escape. I would not stick around to see what might unfold next. I opened the door and stepped out into the unknown. The hallway lay empty, but the chanting was now replaced by an ominous silence. Just then, the fluorescent bulbs flickered and buzzed, plunging me back into darkness. And then I saw it, a small polished object glinting on the floor ahead. I stepped closer, dread pooling in my gut as I realized what it was. It was a locket, shining faintly in the dark, and I knew from the moment I picked it up that it would change everything. I held the locket in my palm, its cold surface grounding me for a moment. A jolt of clarity pierced through the fear. This was no ordinary piece of jewelry. It was delicate, the kind of thing someone would cherish. I flipped it open, and my heart dropped. Inside there was a photograph of a girl. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. There were faint scratches around the edges, as though it had been held tightly by someone desperate to hold on to a memory. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Was this someone I knew? Someone from the town? I pocketed the locket, glancing toward the door to the hallway. The absence of sound made every creak of the gas station seem loud. Had the boy left, or was he still waiting? I had to know. With shaky hands, I turned the doorknob and eased the door open, peering into the dimly lit corridor. I took a cautious step out, straining my ears for any sign of movement. Nothing. It felt too quiet, and a knot of anxiety twisted in my stomach. Taking a deep breath, I moved further down the hallway, every step echoing. My heart sank as I saw the flickering light at the end of the corridor. It led to the main area of the gas station. Would I find the boy? Or worse, the chanting crowd. Just as I approached the end of the hall, a sudden loud crash shattered the silence. My body jolted as the sound reverberated off the walls. I froze, adrenaline rushing back into my veins. The crash had sounded like it came from the main part of the station, where the cashier had been. I took another step, my instincts screaming at me to turn back. But the curiosity was too strong. I peeked around the doorframe, and what I saw made my breath hitch. The cashier was gone. In his place was the boy, tossing cans from the shelves onto the floor, laughing maniacally. His eyes sparkled with something sinister, and I felt a wave of nausea. How had he gotten to the cashier? And where was the old man? I swallowed hard, trying to think fast. The locket in my pocket seemed to burn against my thigh, urging me to unravel its mystery. But right now, I had to focus on getting away from this boy. Then, out of nowhere, a voice whispered my name from behind. I spun around, heart racing. "Who's there?" I called. But the voice didn't answer. Instead, I just caught a glimpse of a shadow retreating into the dark corridor behind me. Panic surged through me. I turned to run, wanting to escape back to the safety of the storage room. But as I stepped away from the doorway, I felt a cold hand grip my arm. "Where do you think you're going?" it hissed. I whirled around, finding myself face to face with the boy. His eyes glinted and the grin spread across his face was predatory. Before I could react, he yanked me back towards the chaos of the gas station. "Time to play!" he shouted, dragging me further into the swirling mix of terror and madness. I resisted, but as he pulled me, I realized I was no longer just running from him. I was now caught in whatever dark game he was leading towards, and I needed to find a way out before it was too late. The boy's laughter echoed in my ears, blending with the chaos around us. It was loud, wild, and completely unhinged. He tugged me through the aisles of the gas station, knocking over display stands, sending snacks crashing to the ground. I struggled against his grip, trying to break free, but he only tightened his hold. "Let go of me," I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. He paused for just a moment, his eyes narrowing as he leaned close. "You don't want to leave yet. The fun is just getting started." His voice was like ice. Panic surged through me. What kind of fun was he talking about? I darted my eyes around, searching for an escape. The flickering lights overhead cast shadows that danced around the walls, creating an eeriness that made my skin crawl. I caught sight of an opening behind the cashier's desk, a small door leading to a stockroom. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, I yanked my arm away from him. He stumbled slightly, surprised by my sudden resistance. I dashed toward the desk, praying I could make it through the door before he recovered. "Hey!" he yelled, his laughter turning to frustration. "You can't run forever." I flung the door open, and it creaked ominously as I entered. The darkness swallowed me whole. I could barely see, but I felt the cold air brush against my skin, sending shivers down my spine. I stumbled forward, trying to catch my breath as I took a moment to gather my thoughts. The stockroom was full of half-empty boxes and stacks of old magazines. I scanned the space for anything I could use as a weapon. Nothing seemed useful. I had to keep moving. I was about to step further into the room when I heard footsteps closing in behind me. Panic shot through me as I realized he was coming. I quickly glanced around, spotting a narrow passageway that seemed to lead outside. It was my only chance. I bolted down the hall, my heart racing. As I rushed towards the exit, I heard him shouting my name again, the tone playful but laced with anger. "You can't hide forever." Before I reached for the door, a strange sound stopped me in my tracks. A low hum vibrated through the walls, pulsating as though the room itself was alive. And then I saw it, a flicker of light emerging from a small opening near the ground. That's when I saw it, a collection of symbols carved into the floor. They glowed faintly, flickering in time with the hum. My breath hitched as I recognized one of the symbols. It was intertwined with the design of the locket I had found. My pulse quickened. What did this mean? Were these connected? Then I heard the boy's footsteps growing closer. There was no time to ponder. I had to decide fast. Explore this bizarre discovery that could be my only clue to what was happening, or risk confronting the boy directly. I hesitated, biting my lip. Whatever this was, it made me feel uneasy, but the boy was on my tail. Then everything went dark as the lights above flickered and dimmed. I spun back, ready to face him, but in that moment, the door to the stockroom slammed shut. I was trapped. I pressed my back against the cold wall, my heart pounding in my chest. The darkness felt suffocating, the air thick with a tang of fear. I strained to hear where he was, but all I could catch was the faint echo of his laughter, closer than I'd like it to be. "Where are you?" he called, his voice mocking and sing-song. Come out, wherever you are." I had to think fast. The glowing symbols on the ground were my only lead, but I couldn't ignore the boy's approach. I crouched low, trying to stay invisible, wishing I had thought to grab something to defend myself. Just then, I remembered the locket. The familiar weight was still in my pocket. Could this be connected? Would it help? I took a deep breath and reached into my pocket, pulling it out. The locket felt warm against my palm, pulsing softly, almost as if it were alive. I peered at the symbols again, looking for some clue about what they meant. Suddenly I heard the door rattle. The boy was on the other side, trying to force it open. Panic surged again, but then I noticed something. The symbols on the floor were lighting up brighter, the glow spreading outward in a wave. With the boy pounding against the door, I stepped closer to the symbols. As I crouched down to examine them, I touched one with my fingertips. As I did, A shock wave of energy shot through me, and the world around me seemed to shift. I glanced behind me, half expecting the boy to burst through at any second. The air felt different now, charged with something strange. The symbols blinked brighter, and then a loud crash echoed in the stockroom as the door finally gave way. I whipped around just as the boy stepped through, his smile wide and unsettling. "What did you do?" he asked, eyes glimmering with excitement. "Did you find the key?" The question threw me. Key? Was he talking about the locket? I held it tightly, pulling it against my chest. "I don't know what you want, but You shouldn't have come here, you know," he interrupted, tilting his head. "This is my special place." I started to back away, keeping my eyes locked on him. "I just wanted to leave." "You can't leave yet." His expression changed, becoming serious as he took a step closer. "Not until you understand." Suddenly, the symbols lit up brighter, creating a blinding flash that made me shield my eyes. In that moment I felt a surge of energy from the locket. As darkness faded, fragments of images crashed over my mind. Lost memories, faces I didn't recognize, a flood of emotions. I staggered back, dropping the locket. The boy laughed, his voice echoing as I struggled to regain my bearings. "What did you see?" he taunted. "What do you remember?" Before I could respond, the items in the stockroom began to shake violently. Boxes toppled over and the lights flickered rapidly. It felt like the walls were closing in. I needed to escape before whatever this was consumed me. "Get away from me!" I yelled, searching for an out. And just like that, in the chaos, I saw another door at the end of the stockroom, partially hidden by a stack of magazines. "Run!" a voice echoed in my head. Ignoring the boy's chaotic laughter, I sprinted toward the door, praying it would lead me somewhere safe and not deeper into his madness. The door swung open, and I stumbled into a dimly lit hallway. I could still hear the boy's laughter echoing behind me, a haunting reminder that he was still close. My heart raced as I glanced back, half expecting him to follow. But when I turned, the stockroom door had already swung shut, cutting off the din. I pressed my back against the wall of the new corridor, catching my breath. The hallway stretched on, dark and endless. Faint lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that danced against the walls. Each step felt heavy, like the darkness was trying to pull me back. I took a few tentative steps forward and noticed images lining the walls, old photographs of families smiling as if they belonged to another world. But something in their eyes wasn't right. They looked lost, as if they were trapped in time. What was this place? Why did everything feel so familiar yet so wrong? I shook my head to clear my thoughts. I had to focus. I couldn't afford to get distracted by the past. As I moved deeper into the hallway, I noticed a door slightly ajar on my right. Hesitant, I approached it. Was there a chance it led me out? Or was it another trap? I paused, listening for any signs of him. The silence felt thick, almost suffocating. With a shaky hand, I pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, revealing a small room filled with objects covered in dust. I stepped inside and quickly scanned the space. In the corner, I spotted a wooden table stacked with books and what looked like an odd assortment of trinkets. My curiosity piqued, I moved closer to the table. One book caught my eye. Its cover was tattered and the title, The Forgotten Ones, was barely legible. I opened it, flipping through yellowed pages filled with sketches and notes. Each page revealed strange symbols, the same symbols I had seen in the stockroom. Just as I began to piece things together, a noise startled me. The floorboards creaked behind me, and I turned just in time to see the boy standing in the doorway, his grin wide and unsettling. "What are you looking at?" he asked, stepping into the room. I tensed, feeling trapped again. "Leave me alone," I shouted, clutching the book to my chest as if it could protect me. His laughter filled the room, louder and more menacing. "You think you can understand? This is just the beginning." Before I could respond, he lunged toward me and I instinctively swung the book at him. He stumbled back, surprised, and I seized the moment. I dashed past him, back into the hallway as he shouted something behind me. But I wasn't listening. I had to keep running. I needed answers, but felt only fear pushing me away from him. At the end of the hallway, I spotted another door. Without thinking, I reached for the handle, ready to escape whatever this nightmare was. As I pulled the door open, the air shifted. I stepped through, and then everything went dark. I stumbled into darkness, my heart racing as panic gripped me. For a moment, I thought I was back in the gas station, trapped once more in the grips of that boy's twisted game. But then, light flickered around me, illuminating a different space. I found myself in a forest, trees towering high overhead, their thick branches weaving a canopy that let just a few stars peek through. The cool night air filled my lungs as I steadied myself, trying to absorb my surroundings. I blinked, realizing the sounds of laughter and whispers had faded, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of a night creature. "Where am I?" I whispered, my voice trembling. It felt too quiet, overtaken by the natural sounds around me. I looked around, but all I could see were trees with gnarled roots reaching out like fingers ready to trap me again. Despite the change in scenery, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still entangled in whatever dark play was unfolding. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I jumped, heart pounding. With shaky hands, I pulled it out. The screen lit up and there it was, Sarah's name flashing across the screen again like a beacon. I answered, breath hitching. "Hello?" Her voice was strained, distant, and filled with anxiety. "Are you there?" "Sarah, I'm out. I think I escaped the gas station. But I don't know where I am. There's a forest." "Listen to me. You have to keep going. They're still looking for you. Find a way out." "The boy—" I struggled to explain, but the words tangled in my mouth. Could I describe the kind of fear he had instilled in me? "He said something. I don't know what it means. The forgotten ones. Don't dwell on it. Just run," she urged, her voice growing fainter, breaking through the static. "Please, just run." Before I could respond, the line dropped. I stood in stunned silence, the night suddenly feeling too still. The air crackled with an energy I couldn't explain, a sensation prickling at my skin. I turned and ran, weaving through the trees, every step reverberating with unease. The laughter echoed faintly behind me as if calling me back, teasing me into the darkness. I couldn't look back. I had to keep moving forward. As I ran, I felt that weight of the locket in my pocket again, that strange energy pulsing with every step. It was a connection to whatever had happened in that town, and perhaps a piece of the answer I needed. Did it hold the key to unlocking the truth? Or would it just bind me tighter to this nightmare? Minutes or perhaps hours passed, and the trees began to thin. I glimpsed vague shapes up ahead. With renewed urgency, I pushed through, finally breaking into a clearing. There stood an old stone wall, crumbling yet oddly compelling, illuminated by the pale moonlight. I approached cautiously, scanning for any sign of danger. The wall loomed tall, and I felt an inexplicable pull toward it. Perhaps beyond lay a way back to my reality, away from the horrors that still haunted me. Beside my aching heart, a whisper tickled at the back of my mind. Find the way. Was it the boy, or something else? The thought sent shivers down my spine. I placed my hands against the cold, rough stone, and as I did, the locket in my pocket grew warm, resonating with the pulse of the wall. Suddenly, the symbols I had seen earlier danced behind my eyelids, flashing with meanings that felt just out of reach. But before I could grasp them, I heard it, a soft, familiar giggle echoing through the trees. I hesitated, and then all at once I felt the urge to commit, to pitch myself against the wall and uncover whatever waited on the other side. I might meet salvation, or I might find myself falling deeper into the abyss. With a deep breath, I closed my eyes and pushed against the stone, fully expecting the release it promised. The moment everything seemed to shift, I felt myself teetering on the brink, uncertainty clamping down on me. Then I was falling, into the wall, through shadows, through whispers, until there was nothing but dark silence, deep breath. And suddenly, I was back in that worn motel room, the creaking of the floorboards beneath me. I opened my eyes, chest heaving. The familiar sight shocked me, dirt-stained linens, the old box still sitting on the bedside table. My phone lay face down next to it. I scooped it up, pragmatically eager for clarity. As I flipped it over, the screen lit up with a new message from Sarah. "I'm so sorry, but I'm waiting." My pulse quickened. I stared at the walls, uncertain if the danger had receded or simply retreated to the shadows, waiting for my next move. What came next would dictate everything. But deep down, beneath the layers of fear, a question lingered, just as unnerving as it had been before. What did it really mean to be forgotten?